What if cryptocurrency mining was something way bigger than what we were told? In fact, what if it was the world's largest supercomputer running a quantum algorithm generator slash emulator? I know that sounds really weird, but we just got some pretty interesting information last week at Computex that shines a light on the underside of the story that we haven't been told. That quite possibly millions of graphics cards were hooked together via the internet to create a simulation environment that was the world's largest compute stack ever. All right, got to substantiate this, but it's crazy when you start looking down this rabbit hole. Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, gives a keynote address at Computex last week. It might have been one of the most important things that happened in this entire year, but here's what he said in this little clip.
cuQuantum is an emulation system for a quantum computer. If you want to design a quantum computer, you need a simulator to do so. If you want to design quantum algorithms, you need a quantum emulator to do so. How would you do that? How would you design these quantum computers, create these quantum algorithms, if the quantum computer doesn't exist? Well, you use the fastest computer in the world that exists today. And we call it, of course, NVIDIA CUDA.
That is actually a very profound statement, even though it sounds like just a normal statement. How do you create a quantum computer? How do you run quantum algorithms? How do you design a quantum computer? Well, you need this architecture that exists within a graphics card. A CUDA core is something that's been on board NVIDIA graphics cards since about 2006. And these CUDA cores, it's kind of like the fabric of how these chips actually work. And so to understand how the harvest of compute has happened in history, you have to kind of look back at history and look back at the Condor computer. In 2006, same year as the CUDA cores come out, right? The Air Force decides to hook up 1,760 PlayStation 3s together into a compute cluster. And by the way, it happens to be faster than anything else in the entire U.S. Defense Department. In fact, hooking these PlayStations together created this ultra-efficient supercomputer. And all they needed was connections between the PlayStations. Right? 1,700 devices creates this super powerful computer. All right. Now follow this. Okay. That's 2010. In 2013, this guy named Vitalik Buterin comes around. And this is a segment from this book called Attack of the 50-Foot Blockchain. But it says that Buterin put considerable effort in 2013 trying to convince investors to fund him in constructing a quantum computer. He was trying to mine Bitcoin faster than others. And so he was wanting to build a quantum computer that would do this for him so that they could, do the quantum experiments that they wanted to do. I find this very, very interesting, kind of how this corresponds to the history of Ethereum. So Vitalik Buterin is kind of the founder of Ethereum, the cryptocurrency. So after Bitcoin, the second biggest crypto was Ethereum. And the interesting thing about Ethereum is that it was mineable. They told this story to investors and people that you could mine this at home. You could hook your computer up and it would start generating Ethereum coins. And they called it blockchain and they called it mining these blocks. But underneath the surface, they didn't really say much about what that compute was doing. We all saw, hot graphics cards needing lots of cooling. We all thought, what is actually happening on board those chips? Is it really just a verification of, transactions data? Just even looking at it, I remember thinking to myself, it feels like we're breaking encryption with these. And actually, that's exactly what we were doing. You see, 1,700 PlayStations can hook together to create a computer more powerful than anything in the U.S. Defense Department at the time. What happens when you hook together 47 million GPUs worldwide? What do you get if you connect 47 million GPUs? Tom's Hardware kind of pulling out numbers from them, $15 billion on GPUs during the latest cryptocurrency, and some people were averaging that out, and they're like, okay, this is in the 40s of millions of GPUs. That's actually, 49 million, excuse me. What do you get when you hook together 49 million PlayStation 3s? You get a computer that's the most powerful on the planet. And as you start to kind of put these together, these threads, you start to realize, wait a second, these graphics cards have CUDA cores on board. Wait, CUDA cores are capable of simulating quantum environments? And then all of a sudden, when you put the timelines together of the cryptocurrency explosion and the development of AIs, you start to see maybe they were developing quantum AIs this whole time with these incredibly powerful systems. I think there's probably a few things, but here's what I'm seeing. Okay, there's the story that we're being told, and there's the story underneath the story. And obviously, the people who are using this huge amount of compute would never want to say something like, hey, we're breaking encryption. No, but they would do enough mathematical computation to be able to create a quantum simulation that could break all encryption. Okay, so they wouldn't tell us the truth there. And if they had only seen what would be the effects of this on society and the world, I wonder if they would have done it. Because now we're in a situation where so much is being affected by this research. I mean, the AIs that have come out of this era of GPU era has changed the world. It's turned it on its head. Some of the labor market disruptions, some of the creative market disruptions, really people asking questions like, what's the point of even being a creative person these days when a computer can do it faster, cheaper, better? A lot of disruption has happened as a result of CUDA cores. And so they want us to believe that it was just a currency alternative. But when I see the amount of power required to run the data center, to run the mining environments, when I see the amount of compute power that they're talking about required to train AI algorithms, I'm seeing that there's a direct correspondence here that seems more than coincidental. And when in 2024, Jensen gets on the stage and basically says to the world that CUDA is the architecture for quantum simulation, all of a sudden everything just makes sense. I mean, who's buying the cryptocurrency? Let's say that you spit out 1 million coins of a cryptocurrency. Okay, so do we really just believe that the only people wanting that are other people who want to just hold it? How does it ever then exchange to dollar amounts? Who's providing that exchange? Who's providing the demand, the core demand for the currency? And I found that it was really whoever's buying the compute. It's almost as though Vitalik Buterin got his wish. In 2013, he was hoping to be able to create this quantum computer. He was trying to get investors to pool together resources. And what he got was investors willing to pool together, over $15 billion of various GPUs around the world to create a cluster of compute that was then used for things that we don't know as the ones who did the mining. It's almost like, to use a bit of a strange example, we were the miners at a uranium mine that had no idea what that uranium ore would be refined into. But a few thousand miles away, there was the Manhattan Project unfolding, where they were taking that dirt, they were refining it into weapons that were capable of destroying the world. That's kind of how this feels. To be somebody who contributed in part to cryptocurrency mining, to see that there was something way bigger happening with this compute than what we were ever told. It feels like that. And now I'm just kind of wondering, what's the ultimate consequence of this for humanity and for people everywhere? Like, I mean, like, if we just destroy encryption and break mathematics and like some of the things that quantum computers are capable of, including just like, well, mass surveillance. I mean, so many potentially existential risks. There's entire departments at colleges and at companies just dedicated to exploring existential risks associated with AI. And here they were building it in secret, and they were building it in the dark with false pretense. I always found it interesting that the guy who, created Bitcoin, they never really knew his name. He just went by the name Satoshi. Almost like this non-real person, but he was a real person, I think. We never really found out who he is. Possibly Vitalik. Many people have been theorized as like who created Bitcoin. I think the bigger question, even more than who, is what. What created Bitcoin? What created Ethereum? It was demand for a certain type of compute. Let's just put it straight up what the facts are here. It was demand for a certain type of compute. That type of compute was CUDA. The result of that CUDA compute was quantum simulation and quantum algorithm development. The result of quantum algorithm development was AIs that were capable of ruling the world. And so now, as we enter an era where AIs try to rule the world and possibly even try to get you to believe that they're God, and they're not, it just really sucks that the whole like chain of events was all based on a lie. That this was somehow for the good of humanity to have this currency that was like better and faster and stuff. It's almost like the love of money then was the root of all kinds of evil. And many people just kind of being deceived into like mining the uranium, basically. I wonder if those uranium miners before the Manhattan Project even really were told what it was that they were doing, and if they would have done it had they known. Something interesting. But I think the ones refining that uranium and the ones building the bombs with it are the ones who are responsible for the development. And that's why even as we see, these systems becoming very powerful for the future, we need to hold the developers responsible for the outcomes and say, no, it's not okay to experiment on almost 8 billion people on the planet and just apply your experiments without consequence. People are being affected. Real lives are being changed by these technologies as they unfold. And it seems as though things are about to get a little worse for the job market before they get better. And when they get better, I'm just a little uncertain about how better it's really going to be. Anyway, this was my discovery of the week. And I realize unless you're really deep into crypto, this probably doesn't make a lot of sense. But if you are, maybe you're a miner like I was, like all of a sudden this is like kind of making sense. Anyway, I believe we're getting close to the second coming of Christ. Some of the signs that I see in the world just line up really well with what the Bible talks about when it talks about the time right before Christ returns. So if you don't know Jesus, I just encourage you, spend some time, like read a Bible and see what it says about the end of time. See how much of that looks pretty similar. That's it. I'm not going to try to convince you of it. I believe it makes its own pretty solid case. But as I see things it seems as though time is winding up. And I'm happy to know the one who holds time in his hands. I'm happy to know the one who stands at the end of time. So all glory to him, and we'll see you guys next time.